This is music, and this is another stack of first impressions. Welcome to another first impressions video. In these videos I share with you my first impressions of primarily the many CDs I blind bought towards the end of 2021 and in the beginning of 2022. I've had a blast, and I continue to have a blast just exploring all this new music and sharing my first impressions with you guys. So let's just get down to business. I have a couple of cassette tapes in the mix this time too, so let's start with those. Up first we have Convent Guilt, Diamond Cut Diamond. This is new wave of traditional heavy metal, I would say. And it's very inspired by the new wave of British heavy metal, to my ears at least. The vocals belong to the more kind of shouty, less refined singing style, rather than the operatic singing style that you could also hear back in the new wave of British heavy metal days. These guys have opted for the more kind of, I guess, underground, rough kind of singing style that was also popular back in the day. And it actually fits both the music, which is just straight up old school heavy metal with some hard rock elements. It fits the music very well, and it also fits the production very well. The guitar tone and the production of the entire release here is a bit rough around the edges, and I think it's on purpose. It kind of emulates the sound that you could hear on some of the late 70s, early 80s, new wave of British heavy metal demos and demo EPs and demo singles and the more undergroundy stuff, even some albums. And it's actually a pretty enjoyable release. So if you like new wave of traditional heavy metal, do check out Convent Guilt's Diamond Cut Diamond. Up next, Eternal Thirst, and this is called The Hellish Fight Goes On this cool red cassette shell. This is power metal. It kind of falls somewhere in between, I would say, US power metal and European power metal. So it has a bit of upbeat feeling to it, like the European power metal, but it also has sort of, a punch to it like US power metal. And there's some elements of traditional heavy metal in here too. It's very good, actually. I really enjoy listening to this. The vocals might be an acquired taste. It's not a bad singer at all. I think it's a he. But the singer has a very unique and maybe weird singing voice that maybe you have to get used to. But yeah, if you like your power metal and you're kind of tired of the happy-go-lucky European power metal, and you think US power metal is perhaps a bit too macho, maybe you will like this one because it has elements from both power metal traditions without it being too much in either camp. So yeah, very good stuff too. And up last, Evoke, Seeds of Death. This is thrash metal with a blackened edge, and to be honest, the blackened part really just consists in the fact that the vocals have some reverb to them, so they become slightly more atmospheric. The singing style is sub-guttural. I mean, it's almost guttural, but not quite. So it's kind of like, the singing style of the thrash metal just before it became death metal, you know what I mean? I would not consider this death thrash though. I wouldn't consider it blackened thrash either, but that's just my opinion. It's very good thrash metal. You got some aggressive riffs. You have some pretty cool little guitar figures every now and then popping up, and the songs are very well written. So it's actually very good thrash metal, and it is kind of dark as well, but maybe a bit Slayer inspired without being a Slayer ripoff. It's very good. If you like thrash metal, check out Evoke for sure. Moving on to the CDs, more thrash metal. Hatred's Madhouse Symphonies. This is, I think it's from 2008 or 2007 or something like that. So it's kind of like 2000s thrash metal. So it has this kind of polished production without being clinical and without being overproduced. I've heard some people complain that thrash metal from this era was overproduced. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't mind it sounding clinical if that fits the music. This is, the vocals are kind of angry sounding, more on the shouty side of things as well. Musically, it's very good. You have some awesome riffs across the board. You have some up-tempo, just all-out thrash metal parts. You have some groove metal parts as well. You have a couple of old-school heavy metal parts too. It kind of reminds me a bit of post-2000s Testament, without sounding like Testament, just a similar approach. Very good stuff. If you like your thrash metal, you come across a copy of Hatred's Madhouse Symphonies, do pick it up. It's great. Up next, Ideologies Embodied, and the release is called Uncivilized. This is a 3-track EP or maybe maxi single, as you can see. This is brutal death metal, in the vein maybe of Suffocation, just a step closer towards your kind of slamming death metal. I don't think it is slamming death metal, but it's brutal death metal. I really like the guitar tone. It sounds almost like old school, kind of like Morris sound inspired death metal. The guitar tone does. So that's great. And I like the guitar work too. It's just a relentless attack of, brutal death metal riffage all the time. And the songs are kind of, I think, again, Suffocation inspired. So they're kind of a bit technical actually, and a bit complex in terms of the composition. So I like the guitar work. I like the guitar tone. I like the riffage itself, for sure. The drums are programmed and they annoy the shit out of me, to be perfectly honest. They just sound annoying. They sound mechanical, and it's extra annoying that they kind of went with programmed drums when there are humans out there who can actually play this kind of fast and technical and complex death metal. They do exist, so it's a bit annoying that they went with programmed drums, but it's extra annoying that the drums just sound terrible to me. They just sound annoying to me, so much that they kind of ruin the entire listening experience, unfortunately. The vocals are, your guttural, extreme death metal and brutal death metal vocals. Again, kind of taking a cue from Suffocation, I think, but just taking it a step too far, I would say, for my tastes. Very guttural, to the point that they sound almost unintentionally funny. I mean, I laughed several times at them, and I don't think that's the effect they're going for here. There's some pig squeals on here, and I just hate pig squeals. I know they're part of slamming death metal and brutal death metal, but I hate them, and they kind of remind me of the movie Deliverance. So the cons, unfortunately, of this release kind of outweigh the pros. So I'm probably not going to keep this one. I'm going to move it on to somebody that will appreciate this kind of music more than I do. And I don't hate brutal death metal. I don't hate the guitar tone or anything like that. I do have, I'm a big fan of Suffocation, for example. But it just doesn't work for me on that particular release. Something that does work for me, fortunately, Infectious Grooves, Groove Family Psycho, Snapped Like a Mother. This is Mike Muir's side project. He's known from Suicidal Tendencies mainly, which is a crossover thrash hardcore punk kind of band. This here is more funk metal. And I've always been a fan of funk metal. I always liked it. I never had a problem with the thrash metal bands of the 90s starting to sound funky, to be honest. Kind of a shame that they kind of abandoned all-out thrash metal, but hey, thrash metal is back, so no worries. But this is a funk metal. The guitar tone is kind of thrashy, actually, in many places. It has a lot of slapping and popping bass. It sounds great. I love the songs on this release here. And Mike Mears' singing style is an acquired taste. When you first listen to Suicidal Tendencies and you hear his singing, you might think it sounds a bit weird until your ears get attuned to it. But his singing style fits this kind of funk metal perfectly. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, this is, if you like your funk metal and you haven't heard Infectious Grooves, this is a pretty good introduction, I think. So do check them out if you're interested. Up next, In Solitude, The World, the Flesh, the Devil. There you go. This is traditional heavy metal, but I wouldn't say new wave of traditional heavy metal. It's just modern traditional heavy metal, if you know what I mean. It's actually very good. Lots of melodic guitar riffs to it, but also some borderline punk. I wouldn't consider it punk metal or anything like that, but maybe some riffs that have maybe a more punky attitude to them. Very good stuff. And it's also nice to hear that, you know, some traditional heavy metal without it being kind of retro, you know what I mean? New wave of looking back to old wave. That was new wave metal back in the day. You know what I mean? So yeah, In Solitude, The World, the Flesh, the Devil. Check it out. It's very enjoyable. And up last, some more death metal. And it's Illogicist, I think is what they're called. I think that's how you pronounce the word. Illogicist, The Insight Eye. This is technical death metal, maybe even progressive death metal to some extent. To my ears, sounds very inspired by the likes of Death, and it's kind of in the same vein, maybe not as technical and challenging as Obscura, but in the same vein as that. Lots of very cool things going on guitar wise. The bass sounds pretty cool too. The songs are complex. They are, you know, changes pretty much all the time. The vocals sound cool too. So this is much more up my alley when it comes to death metal, which is, you know, technical, because Ideologies embodied their style of music is also kind of technical. It's just technical, brutal death metal. This is more my cup of tea when it comes to technical death metal. So if you like Death, if you like Obscura, if you like you know, Focus era Cynic. I mean, it's not as jazzy like Cynic, and it doesn't have that high pitched singing and all that stuff, but it's kind of like, you know, in that family of death metal. If you like that sort of stuff, check out Illogicist. It's actually very good. So yeah. These were my first impressions, mostly positive, but there was this one, you know, snag. I didn't like the pig squeals. I didn't like the programmed drums, but you can't win them all. That's life. Thanks for watching.